A nice sunny day in the first week of November, and look at the delight behind us. The first of the Camellias, sasanquas, bursting into flower at a time of the year when you expect the garden to be drab and disinterested, and suddenly we've got something new and really quite exciting. Sasanqua camellias are more tender than other camellias that we frequently see in the spring, and they're not really suited to being grown in gardens that don't have quite mild climates. The original sasanqua camellias came into the UK probably in about 1872, and we have a copy of Veitch and Sons nursery in Exeter, and they had another nursery in London, dated 1892, and in that catalogue they were selling the first sasanquas. So the question has arisen as to where are the oldest sasanquas in the UK, and it's a question which no one has yet been able to answer, but we think that there are 5 plants, and we'll look at them individually in a moment. We think there are 5 plants here at Caerhays which probably came here in 1900, 1902 or 1905. The reason for the uncertainty was that in the early gardening records here of my great-grandfathers, he just records the arrival of camellias and he doesn't name them. And when you look in the Veitch catalogue, they're not very clear about the names either, because people didn't actually know the names. These were Camellias sasanqua, came from Japan. They were imported by nurserymen such as Veitch, and the first Japanese nursery didn't open in London until just before the First War. And after the First War, a second Japanese nursery opened up in London where they would have been selling sasanqua camellias. But these plants are older than that, and we know for a fact that the first camellia that came here was planted with a Magnolia stellata in 1897. It's possible these plants that we're about to see date from 1897, but it's more likely that they date from 1902 or possibly 1905. They've been growing beside the castle wall in quite a sheltered environment, so they don't feel the cold east winds here, and I think that's possibly one of the reasons why they've done so well over the years. As you can see, these bushes have been trimmed and cut back in the same way as you would cut back many other sorts of camellia. It reinvigorates them and it makes them bush out more readily and flower more readily again. And there's in the row of 5, which we'll just call 1 to 5, this is number 1. Number 1 started flowering in September. Its first full flush of flowers probably by the 10th of October, and it's still flowering away today because we've had no frost this autumn. You can see that some of the flowers are over. You can smell the lovely smell of Camellia sasanqua, which is a smell which you get more from a distance on a still day like today than you get when you poke your nose right up into the flower. And you'll see here that flies have long gone. It's too far into autumn for that, but you've still got wasps who are looking for the nectar in these camellia flowers. And if you look more closely, you will find the odd flower with a wasp that's actually died in the process of fertilizing these flowers. So even now, late in the season, the insects are still doing their job. Of course, we've been waiting to see a wasp. There, one has just appeared. It's a bit camera shy, but anyway, there it is, going for the nectar, and in going for the nectar, it is pollinating, cross-pollinating the plant. Sasanqua camellias will set seed, which is ripe in the early summer. The seed pods, by camellia standards, are fairly tiny. And there you can just see one from last year, just visible there. The seed have long since dropped out, but you can see what you should be looking for if you want to try and grow sasanquas from seed. So we've seen the first one, which is a light pink. We've got the second sasanqua, which has rather droopy branches and rather droopy flowers. And then we come on to the third of these plants, which is a more upright, bushy plant, very dense in its habit, and the flowers are smaller. They don't hang down in the same way as the other white one we were just looking at. There's a lot of flower buds still to come here. The flowers are small and delicate and really very attractive. And this is probably the original single white sasanqua camellia. So far no one has been able to locate anything that is at least 100, if not 120 years old. Today we're propagating this in the nursery, and in the Caerhays catalogue and online website you will be able to purchase this single white sasanqua camellia and maintain a bit of history. So we come to the fourth Camellia sasanqua, and it's quite a bit darker, particularly when the flower first comes out. Quite a bit darker than the first one that we saw. The flowers open out nice and flat, and it's probably absolutely at its best today. There are some flowers are over, and there's some buds still coming. Absolutely plastered in wasps if you look up towards the top of the plant. And a really quite dazzling, showy display. And this is the fifth and last of these original old Camellia sasanquas. And unlike all the others, this one is literally only now just starting to come into flower. And there are only one or two flowers high up on the plant. And again, this is a darker flowered form with a slightly different shape to the flower arrangement of the petals than either of the other two pink sasanquas that we've seen. And digging around in the archives and working with Caroline Bell, who holds the National Collection of Sasanqua, we think that this plant may well be the Award of Merit form that was shown at the RHS show in 1892 and received a first-class certificate then. So this really is historically a very, potentially very important plant. If we look at the picture that was in the Garden magazine in 1893, it's always difficult to compare colours, particularly a watercolour painting that's 140 or so years old. But the view is that this fifth plant may well indeed be the original pure pink Camellia sasanqua that was first seen in this country at an RHS show in 1892. Only perhaps in Cornwall could you see an absurdity like this, with a 100-year-old Camellia sasanqua in full flower and a fuchsia pretending that it's July or August, still in full flower, right beside it. An unusual combination as we embark on our second lockdown for the year. At least we've got something nice to enjoy for the next week or two.